Yeah, it says live on mine.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Oh, you know what? I forgot to calibrate you. Hold on.
Oh, yeah, I don't even have my recording up.
We're off to a great start here.
And we're 20 minutes behind schedule. We're fucking terrible.
2016, baby.
Oh.
All right, hold on. Okay.
Remember my New Year's resolution? Stop screwing up the show.
No, actually.
Yeah, because it's not happening.
Yeah, I probably didn't listen because I didn't believe in it to begin with. All right, let me know when you're recording. I've got you recording on my end.
All right, hold on. I'm recording on my end. So, are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead and just count to 5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Oh, hold on.
Oh, hold on.
Talk again.
5, 4, 3.
Good.
2.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't recording you on my track here.
No, you're good.
All right, here we go, Fred. I'm pushing the button. 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to The Weigh-In with Mike Parsons.
What are you cackling at, fatty? Too much pie, that's your problem.
And Fred Slow.
Anybody want a peanut?
On demand 24/7 at weightinradio.com.
Interior crocodile alligator. I drive a Chevrolet movie theater. Interior crocodile alligator. I drive a Chevrolet.
To the Weigh-In with of course, Mike Parsons. Mike Parsons, welcome to 2016.
Yeah, I think we're out of the woods with that whole Y2K bug here, Fred.
You don't think that's going to be an issue?
Well, judging by the jugs of bottled water that have been in my basement since the turn of the century, I think we're okay.
Budweiser is once again packaging water for flood victims because, as you and most of our listeners are fully aware, the St. Louis metro area and most of the Midwest has become a lake.
Good on you, Budweiser. Is it less filling, tastes great?
It's no, that's Coors. I think that's not even Budweiser.
Head to the mountains of Budweiser.
You guys, and excuse me for my rasp voice. I have been going nonstop with flood efforts. I very much enjoy the Weigh-In, and I enjoy what we do here on 590 KFNS. But I have a day job where I work for a municipality, and at that municipality, sandbagging efforts galore. Mike Parsons.
Are you telling me, Fred, that you are taking an hour out of saving the good people of the Metro St. Louis area to do this little radio show?
Fortunately for us, the river crested on Thursday, and all is slowly but surely returning to normal, and it is nowhere near the end of the world apocalypse that my Facebook feed would have had you believe.
Well, I mean, were there a lot of homes? Were there a lot of businesses affected, or was it mostly floodplain?
No, everything. Everything was affected, Mike. And then the thing about where here in the Metro East is it used to be a river. So if it was one time a river, more than likely it's going to try to be a river again. And that's why the Cohokian Indians lived on mounds, because it floods.
Well, geez, Fred, you start the show, you start the new year with tales of shattered lives and businesses from this flood. How do we transition out of this into sports and fun and frivolity?
Well, obviously it's Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly's. Yeah, you're telling me that the Lord has smote Wood River because of Chip Kelly's sinful racism?
No, we're going from one disaster to another, Mike, is what we're doing. This is in the biz. This is called a transition. The flood is a disaster. Chip Kelly was a disaster. Okay.
Well, Fred, before we get to the Chip Kelly disaster.
Oh, sorry.
I want to talk about another disaster, a disaster in which you live tweeted last week. And I think that you have brought something upon yourself that you don't even know that you brought upon you and your lovely wife, which I want.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Yeah, for the listener that does not follow me on social media at Too Heavy to Skydive, I did tweet my wife as she had what I'm going to call ignorantly volunteered to watch my sister's 10-month-old baby.
And you live tweeted the whole thing. And Fred, something's if it hasn't already started happening yet, thankfully you did this after the holiday season, because if you did this before the holiday season, every family gathering you go to from now on, if they haven't already, relatives are going to ask when you and your wife are going to have a baby. And
Right,
you're going to have to start answering those questions.
Me and my wife, by the way, yesterday was our 7-year anniversary
Congratulations.
of getting engaged, which she reminded me of several times.
It's not a real anniversary.
It's not a real anniversary, Heather. It's not. So we put the kibosh on. We're child free, Mike. We're both 30. We're both double income. We don't need to have that burden in our lives, and it was only proven by my wife trying to babysit a small human being.
But as a couple who have been engaged for 7 years and married for however many 5 years, you're in your 30s, you have no kids. Do you find that the number one question that you get from older friends and older relatives is, when are you guys going to decide to have kids?
Well, no, Mike, because my personality on the radio is my personality in real life, and I am abrasive and I am rude. So people do not ask me questions that start conversation. But no, you are joking and I'm playing. But yeah, no, all the time we do have to deflect. When is a little Fred going to be on the way? And the answer is it's not. That's not going to happen. That's not for me.
Which for humanity, I thank my lucky stars. But to me, that's a really weird phenomenon. I can understand if you're making conversation and you're like, oh, hey, are you guys going to decide to have kids? And you say no, and say, oh, okay, that's the end of it. But it seems like, and Chelsea and I plan on having kids. Just we don't have any immediate plans, but we're thinking about it. But it seems like when you tell people that you're not planning on having kids, they try to convince you otherwise. And to me, that's very weird, because it's like, what's it to other people whether a couple decides to have kids or not? Like I said, I want kids. To me, dads are the coolest, but I don't think everyone should have kids, especially if you don't want to have kids. If you don't want to have kids, don't have kids. That's not fair to anybody.
Mike, it's like Christianity and it's like gun control. Okay. If you're about it, you try to push it on other people. And it's the same thing with having kids. All right. My core values, which are sleeping in late on the weekends and staying out late on the weeknights, do not correspond with the lifestyle of kids can't take care of themselves. You have to raise them.
Right.
When they're gestation, is that the word I want? The gestation period on a child it's absurd. It's literally like 20 years. For 20 years, you have to watch a child. Otherwise, it's constantly doing stuff trying to kill itself.
And that's assuming that the economy is good by the time they hit 18. Because, I came of age in the 2008 economy, and I didn't move out of my parents' house till I was 25. I wanted to move out at 18, but I couldn't at 25. So,
and we have similar stories, except I moved out at 17. And whenever I moved out at 17, I said to my mom and dad, who, by the way, had raised me for 17 years, loved me, cared about me, fed me, protected me, let me sleep with them, provided everything in the whole world for me. And as I was 17, I said, I hate you both. And I did not really hate them. I don't know why I would have said that, but because that burden, I can't hold that, Mike. Can't put that on me.
Because you were a tinderbox of hormones and angst, like everyone is at 17.
Whenever I was young, and I think this is true for a lot of 31-year-olds, I was really into like John Hughes movies, right? So I thought being a kid was supposed to be like The Breakfast Club,
right?
And it wasn't, Mike. It was more like just like really boring. It was just I had the most boring life, and I couldn't live like that. But I knew if I got on my own, I would end up doing really great things and writing my own story of a 365-page book that starts every new year. And I had to do that by telling my parents that I didn't need them, which, and I knew at the time, was an absolute lie. And I can't deal with that, Mike. Okay, that's why me and my wife, and you can see through this live tweet, are the worst care providers in the history of that. Is if there's a gene or a chromosome for taking care of kids, we don't have it. I don't.
Well, and John Hughes is the number one cause of friend zones in America, because the John Hughes movies, it's the you got the guy who's the best friend. He's in love with the girl's dating jerks, and then eventually she sees he's a great guy and they fall in love. And I think that keeps a lot of neckbeards. That keeps a lot of neckbeards hanging around in the friend zone. But let's be honest, Fred, you are a gigantic man. You are the biggest human being I've ever met.
Yeah, a lot of people would agree.
And babies are small. So from a safety standpoint, I'm not comfortable with the thought of you walking around at 6'6", pushing 3 bills, I'm guessing.
3 bills, yeah.
And a little baby crawling around on the floor. You're not paying attention. You're stepping on that baby like an ant.
Well, and the thing is about children is you can't overlook them because they're constantly in need of something. And they cannot communicate, Mike. I have a cat named Lance Berkman that I can communicate with far easier than this child.
Well, I mean, animals are easy to communicate with. You want them to do something, you just throw a treat in the direction of what you want them to do. Which I guess you could do with a baby.
No, I don't know. The long story short, my wife, who I love dearly, I just watched her struggle for 4.5 straight hours as my sister went to watch Star Wars, which, by the way, I didn't know was 4.5 hours because when I went, it was only 2 hours. But for some reason, she was 4.5 hours away.
She was watching the George Lucas cut. That's why.
Oh, gosh. It just, yeah. Long story short, do not have kids with me.
Life lesson number 1 for 2016. Do not have kids with Fred Slow. And Fred, we spent an entire segment talking about why you shouldn't have kids. We haven't even touched on the college football playoff, which I guess we'll hit next.
Well, we can't hit that next because now we're going to have to come back and talk about Molly Ringwald and Ali Sheedy. This whole episode's screwed.
You know what? Just quit. Let's coming up next on the weigh-in, 45 minutes of dead air. 590 KFNS, TalkSTL.com, weighinradio.com. We'll be right back. That was fun. That was a fun segment.
I'm just terrible.
What's that?
I'm terrible.
What do you mean?
Just I'm not a good person, man.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, here's the no, you know your limits. That's the thing. You know your limits. You don't want.
I have motivations that are bad.
I mean, not really. What are your motivations? Staying out late on the weeknights, sleeping on weekends. I mean, look, Fred, don't let Big Baby make you feel bad for not wanting to have kids. Like I said, I want kids. I don't give a crap if you want kids. If you don't want kids, don't have kids. All right, I guess we'll talk about the college football playoff here. I'll bring it in. Let's see. That one went about 10 minutes. I don't want to transition into the college football playoff with just 4 minutes left, so we ended it a little bit early. Okay, so we'll go like 14 minutes with this. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Now, back to the weigh-in.
These guys are like bad stand-up comics that you can't heckle.
Weighinradio.com.
It is the weigh-in, 590 KFNS, TalkSTL.com, and weighinradio.com. Fred, I don't know if it was just me, but according to my Facebook and Twitter feeds, everyone besides me had a terrible 2015.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, because it would have to be terrible because everyone's going to have the best 2016 ever.
Right. Everyone says this next year is going to be their year. And I don't really want any particular year to be my year because back in 2012, that was Gautier's year. You know that? No, you're just somebody. And that I used to know. And 2013, 2014, 2015 wasn't too great for Gautier. So I never want to go into a new year saying this is going to be my year. I really just want to end every year alive, employed, and somewhat content. And everything else is just gravy. But yeah, I mean, people who I would see every day, and I know everyone has their own struggles and people put on a brave face, but people I saw every day had no idea they were going through tough stuff. We're just talking about how miserable 2015 was. And I got to say, I was pretty happy with my 2015.
I say every day is the best day of my life. Okay. Like, and there's no joke there. It absolutely, you wake up and you see what you got going on or whatever, and you love it. This year, I had a Triple Crown winner. I had the best Super Bowl I ever watched. Star Wars. Like, I mean, this was a really good year, or last year was. So I don't understand how people can be just so down about everything. I mean, aside from like the impending election and ISIS and all these terrible things, like there were high points, man. I thought 2015 was. I thought that was a good one.
Well, you had a great year because you didn't have a stupid baby around to hinder it.
No, yeah, because I didn't curse myself, right. So I'm fine.
But I think I don't know. I think the random grouping of 12 months at a time, I think it puts too much pressure on people, because I notice every year at the end of the year, people start to get anxiety, they start to get depression, and I kind of get it, because when that ball is dropping, you're like, oh, okay, last year ended, now it's a brand new year, and I have to start all over again. Where really, I mean, if 2015 was terrible for you, and you just shift sort of the predetermined 12 months that equals a year forward 6 months, well then, you know, if you have a nice 8-month run in those randomly appointed 12 months, then you had an overall good year. I just don't like marking successes and failures by arbitrary 12-month groupings.
The thing about like deadlines and expectations, at least for me, they're things that I always set for myself, right? So if I have a goal, or if I have, I don't know, something I'm trying to achieve, if I do not achieve that thing, the only person that really falls on is me. So there's no sort of consequence, there's no sort of pushback, right? But I can understand how people who do not meet their goals or whatever, do not meet their own expectations, would feel internally, you know, like they're failing. And I love the idea of going into the new year with some resolutions. I love the idea of saying, hey, it's 2016 and I'm going to be better X, Y, and Z. For the most part, mine are pretty extrinsic. There are things I try to do for other people because I think those things help other people. I don't know if that's true. No one's ever well, I guess people have told me that. They're like, hey, that's nice of you. But people aren't like, you're changing my life. No one's ever said that to me. Heather said it once, but it was not in a good way.
Right. Well, Fred, right. I find that you're most helpful when you stay out of the way.
Classic other Mike Parsons.
Well, I've never been a huge New Year's Eve guy. So to me, it didn't really bother me that the NCAA scheduled the first round of the college football playoffs on New Year's Eve, other than the fact that it conflicts with my bi-yearly Twilight Zone marathon on the Sci-Fi Channel. And honestly, at first I thought it was a great idea because you can make it sort of event viewing like the Super Bowl. You have parties, people come over, you kind of build your New Year's Eve around it. If you're out and about, it's at a bar. But there's a lot of people out there who are upset that the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl, the first and semifinal rounds of the college football playoffs were on New Year's Eve. And I'm thinking to myself, the NCAA putting the first round of the playoff on New Year's Eve is either an incredibly good idea or an incredibly bad idea.
The NCAA has a track record of not getting it right the first time. So what I think maybe, and I think you're right.
Yes, the old BCS system.
So the other night on New Year's Eve, Clemson, Oklahoma is playing, and it's into the third, and it's like 17-16, and it's a real good game, and there's a fun highlight on a fake punt, and everything is going great. But that time comes when I start meeting up with my friends and family because I'm going out that night because it's New Year's Eve. Well, as that happens, Clemson starts pulling away in the game, and you know what else just pulled away? My attention. So I'm no longer watching the football game. And then in the Orange Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, I didn't watch any of that. I didn't watch snap one of the Cotton Bowl because it was such a devastating blowout because Michigan State, I guess, had plans that night too because they weren't there. But I agree that the games would be best played in 2015 and maybe the whole season, like, because I think it goes to week 20. If all 20 weeks could be compressed into one calendar year, and then it's a fresh start, and obviously college basketball starts picking up.
Well, and also having the two big games on New Year's Eve, I think it takes away a lot from the New Year's Day Bowls, which the New Year's Day Bowls used to be sort of a watermark, right? If your team isn't competing for a national championship, at least they might find themselves in a New Year's Day Bowl, and there was a level of prestige there. Which now, if I think you have the two big games on New Year's Eve, and then on New Year's Day you have the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and all those other quote unquote big bowls, they seem more like consolation games than anything else. Which I mean they are, but it really magnifies the fact that they're that they're consolation games.
Well, and whatever name they all have, it doesn't matter to me. It can be Citrus, it can be Outback, it can be whatever. Those games are played well on Sundays. It's like Sundays. Gosh, I'm way off today, Mike. They are best on
drunk.
Yeah, right. They're absolutely best played on New Year's Day because New Year's Day traditionally is the day everyone has off. So I can start watching football at 11 in the morning, and I can watch football all the way up to like 8 o'clock at night, and that's fine because I didn't do anything today because I went out the night before because it was New Year's Eve.
Right. It's also right. It's also a day people just want to sit around and do nothing because they're hungover. But yeah, you're right, Fred. You were talking about the Orange Bowl and how once Clemson started pulling away, you stopped watching. And primetime New Year's Eve for people who are staying home, there's a lot of competition, right? You got Seacrest on Channel 7. I'm sorry, ABC. Do I sound like heck? You have Seacrest on ABC. You've got Pitbull and the B Team, right, on Fox. And so what I was doing with the Cotton Bowl, watching my Spartans get routed, I was flipping between New Year's Rockin' Eve, for the wife, and the Cotton Bowl. And after that Cyrus Jones punt return that put Alabama up 24-0, I checked out. So I'll be very interested to see what the ratings are and if this is an experiment. I would think that if this is an experiment and they take a look at the ratings, and ratings probably decreased throughout the night, partly because of people's New Year's Eve habits and partly because the Cotton Bowl was such a blowout, I think they may want to rethink having the playoffs on New Year's Eve.
There are two kind of people in my life, and let's relate this to social media because I feel like most of our listeners are very attuned. There's the photo from New Year's Eve where the guy is out with all of his friends at the bar and he's having a blast. No mention of college football. Then there's the photo of all the kids piled up on like the couch in the living room, like because somebody has volunteered to watch every kid in the neighborhood.
Right.
And that person is not watching college football either. Who's watching the game? I don't know what your target demographic is on what is arguably the second biggest party night of the year. I think you might be missing the boat just a little bit.
I think the demographic you're shooting for are people looking up every now and then who are out at a bar. Because essentially that's what it comes down to.
I guess advertisers want to put money on that. I guess.
Right. Like I guess maybe you want to be a liquor company or you want to be a beer company, and all you have is just a big graphic that says order Bud Light, order Patron, because you got people at the bar right there going up to order their next drink, and that'd probably be the most effective form of advertising for that type of demographic. So I could be wrong. Maybe they did monster ratings, but I'll be interested to read those when they come out. I don't anticipate the ratings being all that great.
I think New Year's Eve should be a night off for sports. The St. Louis Blues, who play down there at the Scott Trade Center, normally their tickets are 3 times face value for any game all season long. Normally, they're a hot team. They do well. On New Year's Eve, you could still get $25 face value tickets from the box office, and it's probably the only game that the Blues didn't sell out all year. It's not just true for this football thing. It's true. I think for sport in general, just take this night off. There's other stuff going on. I don't make it a travel day. Let guys hang out with their families or something.
Yeah, well, so now, I mean, whether the ratings were good or not, a national championship is set for January 11th. Clemson versus Alabama. I got to say, Fred, I haven't watched a whole lot of tape on Clemson. I haven't watched a whole lot of tape on Alabama other than your normal highlights. But if I had to pick a winner, and I think last night shows that it's hard to predict outcomes because all of these teams play in their conferences, and all the conferences have such different styles of play. So I don't think anybody thought. I think most people thought Alabama was going to beat Michigan State, but I don't think people anticipated it putting such a shellacking on them. So with that, if I had to pick a winner of the championship game on the 11th, I'm going to have to go with Alabama. And maybe it's just me being conditioned over years and years to see Alabama as a powerhouse and Clemson as sort of a fluke. And maybe it's because I'm picking between the two coaches, and though I find Dabo Swinney very likable and charismatic, I see Nick Saban as an ice-cold assassin. I'm going to have to pick Bama to win the whole thing.
Between the two teams, they've played, 28 games, 14 apiece probably. So they played 28 games. I've probably watched 25 of them, of the two teams, not in whole, but in large chunks. Both teams are very good, man. Both teams can really play. The thing about Alabama versus Clemson is Alabama has NFL players. Clemson has collegiate players. Clemson runs a collegiate game. They can beat other colleges. Alabama is going to compete with any team on the planet, collegiate or, I don't know, Detroit Lion. But the Alabama team is going to, I think, going away with it, take this game, and it's all about that defense. Clemson is not going to be able to do what they did against Michigan State, against Alabama. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But I wouldn't expect it to be close. I think it'll be big plays and big hitting. But I think Alabama, I don't know, man, 14, maybe 14, 30 to 18.
Well, it's funny you bring up Alabama's defense because Bama's defense isn't getting a whole lot of press, and I guess rightfully so. A lot of the headlines are for Derrick Henry and the running game, not so much the whole offense, but Derrick Henry and the running game. But that Bama defense, that's a buzzsaw, and I think you have the Heisman Trophy winner. You have a serviceable quarterback who proved in the Cotton Bowl that he's got some big playability, and you have that unsung defense that seems like it could go against some of the lower tier NFL teams. I think you're right. I think it's a recipe for an Alabama win, and it's probably not going to be close.
I also feel like you mentioned earlier, they've been there before kind of mentality. So this was a big win for Clemson, and I'm not saying it tops off the season. Obviously, they know they have one more game, but that's a big bowl win in prime time that you as a program have not experienced in some time. And then for Alabama, this was another game. This was another game to get them towards where they want to be, their national championship goal that they didn't just have before this season started. They had before last season started, and they had before the year before that. Nick Saban and his team are going to be prepared. And both these teams are going to end the year with one loss because Alabama already has a loss. But Alabama is going to, without a doubt, be the best team in the country, I don't know, come the 11th.
Well, and you even saw it between the two coaches the other night in the Cotton Bowl. The video was all over the place of Michigan State coach Mark D'Antonio and his pregame interview with, I think it was Colleen Dominguez. I may have the female reporter wrong. But he was very short. He was very terse, and he was locked in and ready to go. And it seemed like Nick Saban, he didn't seem worried at all. He didn't even seem bothered that there was a football game being played with national title implications. I mean, the demeanor of Nick Saban being so laid back and acting like this was like a non-conference game, I think shows you all you need to know about Nick Saban and how he prepares his team for big games.
He also did something that we weren't prepared for. You were talking about the running game with Henry, but the quarterback, number 14, Coker, he goes out there and he completes like 85% of his passes or something, like 25-30, goes for nearly 300 yards. That you hadn't necessarily seen that all season long. I think it was his highest passing yardage of the year. But with that said, it wasn't his most attempts. It wasn't the Alabama offense that you're accustomed to. And by the way, they had the ball a lot because the defense was forming. The defense was all over the field. Yeah, when the other team doesn't have the ball, then you don't necessarily have to worry. But it's a good team. They're just a step above. They're kind of in that Ronda Rousey kind of, like, no one's really there to compete with them right now. And someone eventually is going to come up and knock them out, but it's not going to be this year, and it's not going to be Clemson.
Yeah, and I have no idea how they lost to Ole Miss, because the team that I saw last night in the Cotton Bowl is not losing to anybody until they're broken up by graduation. We got to take a break, Fred. It is the weigh-in. 590 KFNS Talk Radio. I'm sorry, 590 KFNS Talk STL and weighинradio.com. I wonder what happens if you go to Talk Radio STL.
I bet nothing. TalkRadioSTL.com.
All right, so we went 17 with that segment. So let's see here. So
it's a website. Somebody owns it. There's just nothing on it.
Is it?
Yeah.
So let's see. 27 divided by 2. That's
13 and a half.
13. Oh, okay. So we're kind of like right on schedule then. Okay.
You want to talk about this report that says the St. Louis Rams are targeting Drew Brees in the offseason? Now, well, plenty of offseason. Never mind. We'll do that later.
Okay. Well, has there been any update on where they're going to be playing? Is Kroenke still looking to move them?
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I can talk about that.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you can go ahead and touch on that, and then we can talk about Brees, because I mean, there's a good chance that these offseason speculations might come and go pretty quickly. And then if we have time, we'll transition into the Peyton Manning thing. Or let's do Chip Kelly, because we teased Chip Kelly. Well, no.
Let's do that. There's jokes there. Okay.
All right, we'll do Chip Kelly. I want to hit Peyton Manning too, so we may not have time for our end of the year awards. Hopefully we do. Okay.
Whatever.
Okay, so you're going to bring us in here.
You're so close to the camera.
I know, because I'm my tablet right here. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Now, back to the weigh-in.
Hold on. That sounds like ass.
Yeah, it sounds like beehole.
Yeah.
Now, back to the weigh-in.
Got it!
All right, here we go.
Oh, we got it.
No, I mean, I was trying to figure out why it sounded like ass. It was just a loose wire. Okay, here we go.
Now, back to the weigh-in.
Got it!
Weighинradio.com.
Welcome back to the weigh-in. We, unlike the St. Louis Rams, are not going anywhere, Mike. We're going to be here every single Sunday for the duration of your entire listening life. I, Stone Fred Slow, alongside me, Mike Parsons. The St. Louis Rams task force on keeping the Rams in St. Louis. They have submitted their proposal, Mike. It got in by the deadline. Of the 3 teams, there are conversations about moving: the Rams, the Raiders, and the Chargers. The Rams are the only team that can say, we have a plan on what to do, and we have a plan on how to pay for it. It looks like the Rams might stay in St. Louis. But then again, what do we know?
Yeah, well, and if they do stay in St. Louis, Fred, I've been asking this question ever since it came out that Kroenke wanted to move them to L.A. If they stay, will you embrace them?
I will. I am not mad at the Rams. I am mad at their father. St. Louis Stadium Task Force Co-Chairman Dave Peacock and Bob Litz have done everything they can do to make the NFL force the Rams to stay, and I think it's such a smart angle. Stan Kroenke does not want to stay. Stan Kroenke wants to go. He has the land in LA. He has a plan. And for real, between me and you and the listener, good luck to him. He's a guy who's very successful at what he's done, and he's going to continue to be successful. But he's dealing with some guys who are very smart. And these guys, it looks like they have outsmarted him, as they have found a way to get $400 million in public funding. The NFL's $250 million or whatever. And then also Stan Kroenke's forced $250 million to keep the Rams in St. Louis. Stan Kroenke's only real move at this time is to stay year to year at the Edward Jones Dome, and he would look like a huge asshat if he didn't go to a brand new stadium that we are building.
Well, and let me ask you this now, Fred, and I hate to play the grandpa taxpayer card.
Yes.
But tax money, it invokes a lot of passion in people. If the Rams stay and they improve and they do well, the greatest show on turf days return, everybody's happy. The Rams stay. They move into a stadium that was funded with $400 million of public funds, and they stink. Is that going to make fans even more angry because that's our tax dollars at work, and this is what they're doing with them?
You're always going to hear the guy that can tell you what to do with your money a little bit better than the next guy. North St. Louis is rough. There's a lot of stuff in the city that is rough, and this $400 million in state city public funding could go to those things, you would think. Could go to infrastructure, could go to stability, but it's not. And the thing about it is the money raised is not just money from St. Louisans, it's money from Kansas Cityans, it's money from the Ozarks, it's money from all across the state. So that money is not going to get allocated to fixing potholes in your neighborhood, Rams listener. What it is going to do, it's going to go to a stadium that's going to help your city bring interest, bring groups, bring entertainment, bring tourism. And the 8 times a year when they host a Rams game, you can be up in arms. Fine. The rest of the year when they're doing something else with the stadium and it's generating revenue, i.e. a ballpark village, i.e. the America Center next to the TWA Dome, it is good for the city to bring people to the city, and it would be hard to argue that.
Well, and, the Rams, if they stay, it looks like they're trying to make some upgrades, not only to the stadium, but to some of their key positions on the roster.
Well, I mean, we got some decisions to make, don't we? And there's a big game today, and Jeff Fisher has a chance to go to 8-8, which he does every single year, so there's no way to ever get rid of him. But the quarterback position's rough. All the wide receiver positions are rough. We got guys that just haven't peaked the way we thought they would. What we have is a running back. We have a running back. And I'll build a team around a running back. I don't hate that idea. But we got to bring in some talent, and that talent might be veteran free agents.
Right, and if you're building a team around a running back, you could do it, but only count on being able to build your team around that running back for a very, very short amount of time.
Running backs last 2.5 seasons. Is that about right?
I mean, I don't know what the average is, but that sounds about right. Just thinking of the last 10 years and, the big name running backs that have come and gone, plus that position, the more carries you have per season, the shorter your career is going to be.
Well, and it's like with anything in the NFL, you are going to get hurt. It's not you might get hurt. It's not you could get hurt. It's you're going to get hurt. And if you don't have the guys that are able to provide on the field after those guys get hurt, then that's when you're really in trouble. And you saw it with Cincinnati the other day with A.J. McCarron. He goes down on the last play of the game after their other quarterback had already gone down, Andy Dalton. So now Cincinnati's in a scramble.
Right, and Fred, you and I even got a couple snaps at quarterback for the Houston Texans this season.
I love HBO's Hard Knocks, so I'm going to watch the Texans all year. And whatever team's on Hard Knocks next year, I'm going to watch that team too.
Right.
But yeah, that Texans team, they're in a prime example. They bring in Alfred Blue whenever their running back goes down. Wow, what's his name? Arian Foster. They can bring in guys and whatever. They're in the playoff hunt. I mean, yeah, it's not the best division in football, but they're in the mix, and that's all you want to be at this time of year. But the Rams they're looking outside, and there are reports that, because allegedly Sean Payton is going to get separated from the New Orleans Saints, and if Sean Payton gets separated from the New Orleans Saints, then they're going to let Drew Brees go, Is Drew Brees the kind of guy that you want to put in a St. Louis Rams uniform for 1 year, 2 years? And what good is that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to me, I'm looking at Drew Brees' numbers here, because your first instinct with the season the Saints have had is that Drew Brees has fallen off a bit, but he really hasn't. The numbers he put up this year are pretty consistent to the numbers that he's been putting up ever since he got to the Saints. But, my question is, or my concern is with Drew Brees, is I think Drew Brees needs to go to a place that's ready to go right now, and they just have one missing piece that of the puzzle that needs to be completed, the quarterback position. The Rams, they're building around a young running back, and if you're building a team for the next few years, although Drew Brees is one of the greatest quarterbacks of the past decade or so, he's been playing for a decade and a half. And although his numbers haven't fallen off, it's probably just a matter of time before they do. So although it would be great to see Drew Brees in a Rams uniform for the next season or two, if you're thinking long-term, you probably don't want to go with him. Unless you bring Drew Brees in, for the meantime, you draft somebody young and have him sit behind Brees and be mentored by him. But other than that, I don't think it's a good fit, just because the Rams, they're not one quarterback away from being a contender.
The problem with the 2016 NFL draft is quarterback. This is the absolute worst year to need a quarterback coming out of the draft. Guys like Paxton Lynch, guys like Jared Goff, guys like Connor Cook, who we just saw get annihilated last week. Those are the kind of guys who are going to go. That Carson Wentz, is that the kid out of North Dakota? Those are the guys that are going to go in the first round through the third round. And none of those are guys you want to build a franchise around. Those are not guys. Those are more game manager type quarterbacks. Those are not Andrew Lucks. Those are not guys that are going to come in and make an immediate impact. So you have to, I think, if you're a team who needs a quarterback, go for an established veteran, and you might have to overpay a little bit because they're not dumb. They got agents. They know what the field looks like. Go and get a guy that's going to be able to learn your playbook and play for you. So I think a guy like Drew Brees is going to be highly sought after. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick's deal is up at the end of this year. He'll be highly sought after. I think there are a handful of dudes who are going to be able to come in and help teams in the offseason, and the Rams have to target one of those guys because I just don't believe in Case Keenum. And the Nick Foles experiment, if not over yet, should be.
Right, exactly. So you don't think it'd be a bad idea for the Rams to go after sort of the sexy free agent signing, even if he's only got a year or two left of playing at the level that he's playing at?
I would agree. In sexy is not a term we have to use. I don't think it has to be a guy that is what's the best way to say this? I don't think it has to be a guy that has been the marquee player of a franchise, okay? But I think it has to be a guy who has been in the league long enough and knows how to play, right? And you're not going to have a million options. You're going to have, like I said, you're going to have a guy who's been in the league, but you want that guy to know what winning is like. And Drew Brees is one of those guys. I think Kirk Cousins would be another option. I know he's coming available, but outside of that, I don't really know who are the guys that you're going to get real excited about. It's
right.
Not fun,
Right, exactly. And Kirk Cousins, to me, it's weird because Kirk Cousins, he's another Michigan State quarterback. And I remember when he was drafted by the Washington Redskins, and people were sending him condolences cards because he was drafted the year after RG3 was drafted, and people thought that he was going to spend his entire career playing behind RG3, which fast forward a couple years, and there were some unforeseen circumstances, and a lot of the predictors got it wrong. Kirk Cousins now, he's on the verge of being named the franchise quarterback out there in Washington, which I think he's exceeded expectations, but I'm not sure if he's yet a guy you want to name as your franchise quarterback. He's a great surprise, and he's more than serviceable. He's on the good. He's on the good side of serviceable. Not sure if he's franchise material yet.
Quarterbacks under 30. Something that I think you should strive for. You want a guy young enough but good enough that you can have for a couple years, and you can attract free agents and you can build your roster. I think Kirk Cousins is that number one guy under 30. He's only 27 years old. I think number two is obviously Brock Osweiler, but I don't see him leaving Denver. You ever been to Denver? It's like the nicest city in the whole country. You're comfortable there. Number three guy that I think is real talented and young is Matt McGloin, and he's backup quarterback in Oakland. He played at Penn State. He's a dude who I just think can sling it. I thought he could sling it in college. I watch him play in the preseason every single year because I'm a huge Matt McGloin mark. If you can get McGloin at 26 or Cousins at 27, and you're not going to get Osweiler, who's 25, then after that, like, you really have to start just going to the top. You have to start going to those guys who have played a long time. And I don't know, bring back Sad Bradford if you have no other option. Just
yeah, right. Well, there may be a fire sale coming out of Philadelphia in the not too distant future. And we'll get into that, Fred, after the break here. It is the Weigh In 590 KFNS, Talk STL.com, and WeighInRadio.com. We'll be right back. Okay, good. We're at 12 minutes, so I didn't want to get into it. Okay, so we'll hit on the Chip Kelly thing. We'll try to transition into Peyton Manning, and it looks like our end of the year awards are probably going to get cut here.
That's a bonus Google Hangout Watcher end of the year awards. Not even on the broadcast. You're gonna love it.
Hey, all right. Oh yeah, we can do it after. That's fine.
Or not. No one's gonna watch it.
Yeah, I got some. You know what? It might be funny if we did them next week, or maybe not. I don't know. Here we go. I think you're bringing it in, aren't you?
That's fine.
Okay. Is it your turn to bring it in? I don't care.
It might be your turn. It don't matter to me.
Oh, okay. I'll bring it in then. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Now, back to the weigh-in.
Thank you so much for saying what needed to be said.
WeighInRadio.com.
It's still real to me, damn it.
Finally, mercifully, the Chip Kelly experiment in Philadelphia has come to an end. And I think what we can take away from this is just because having your coach double as a personnel guy worked in San Antonio with Greg Popovich doesn't mean that it's necessarily a model that you can replicate.
Why would the Chip Kelly formula be the one formula in the NFL that doesn't use star players?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It seemed like his first move was to give away all of his best players, right?
Deshaun Jackson's, he went back with the Redskins, obviously. He goes back to Philadelphia to play, where he played for, 4 years after he came out of college, and he was a super stud. And he gets booed. But no, he didn't. Chip Kelly got rid of him. That's not, he would still be there, Philly. Figure it out.
LaShawn McCoy.
Gone.
It was really weird. Once Chip Kelly kind of got that power invested in him, he got rid of the best players, and of course, that led to accusations of racism last summer that LaShawn McCoy made, and Stephen A. Smith ran with it, and a lot of people looked at that sideways because if you're playing, if you're involved in professional sports where you have so many different players from so many diverse backgrounds, how could anybody be a racist and decide to and still be able to function? That seemed a bit fishy. But what I can believe is that last week some anonymous Eagles players came out and said that Chip Kelly, he's not really a racist. He's just a power-hungry tyrant.
Well, that's what. What's old boy's name? Lane Johnson, the fullback, by the way, white. He said that. Like he was like, this dude's a dictator. Like we're adults. We're here to do a job, man. You don't have to like tater dick.
Right. Well, and probably the reason for that is because Chip Kelly came straight from a college football program where things are much different. When you're coaching college football, you're taking kids just out of high school, and it's your way or the highway. Once you get to the NFL, these are full-grown men making money. It's no longer a game, it's a business. And if we're going by the Chip Kelly is a tyrant theory, it kind of makes sense why he got rid of his star players, because maybe it was too many alpha males in one room and Chip Kelly didn't like that.
Well, there's nothing I hate more than having like my leadership question when I'm in a leadership position. But as a leader, you have to be able to overcome that, right? You have to be able to swing that opinion. And he wasn't able to do that. Jordan Matthews, I think, is a good example. Jordan Matthews is a wide receiver in Philadelphia who's got all the talent in the world, and he's going to excel as a player. And if you can convince a young guy like that to buy in and be part of what you're doing, great. But you also have to be able to convince the guy who's already there and established himself, like a Nick Foles, who they traded to the Rams, who under Chip Kelly had a lot of success. But whenever the first thing you do is talk about how you're going to bring in Marcus Mariota, and there's all this news about how you're going to get your formula players, and then you start moving your best guys and Kiko Alonso is a good linebacker. You can move LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso in any Madden game. But whenever you do it, you're going to have a huge drop-off at running back, and then you bring in a stud running back from Dallas, a division rival, in Murray, and he falls off the face of the earth. He led the league in rushing last year. He has a third of those yards this year. So he doesn't know how to use the players he had. He didn't know how to use the players he got, and all he ever talked about was getting new players.
Well, and I think it also demonstrates that coaching players and evaluating talent are two completely different skill sets. Just because you're good at one doesn't mean that you're going to be good at the other. And let the speculation train begin as to where Chip Kelly is going to land now that he's out of work with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think if you're an NFL team, you're crazy to bring him on. If you're a college team, you go after him all guns blazing.
There's a lot of mystery still surrounding his next move. I'm not surprised if he ends up in college. And when I say in college, I mean at the biggest program possible. Like, bringing him in is going to work for someone. I don't know who that someone is off the top of my head. South Carolina. I think South Carolina might be a fit.
I think USC is another big job that's open.
Yeah, well, yes, that's not a terrible option. It would be poetic for him to go back to the Pac-12, but I just don't know for certain. But Chip Kelly he's going to end up being just fine. But we've seen crazier things happen. I mean, he ends up in Tennessee. See Mike Mularkey. Who knows?
Yeah, right. Or hey, LSU. Remember, LSU had that embarrassing snafu when they said that Les Miles was out. Jimbo Fisher said, "No, I'm not coming to LSU. That's a lateral move. I'm staying at Florida State." Maybe LSU now, they do-si-do one more time and say, "Bye, Les Miles. Welcome in Chip Kelly."
With his kind of creativity and offense and his blatant racism, maybe he can go coach at Navy or something. Maybe he can go coach at one of those schools.
Coach at where?
Like Navy. I think he would do really well there. Like, that might work. That's a joke. Obviously, I don't allegedly racist. But yeah, his problem right now is there aren't a lot of jobs available. There are not, and there will be in the NFL, but like you said, he's a little too toxic.
I mean,
go ahead, Mike.
I said, if I'm an NFL team, I'm not touching that with a 30-foot pole.
Whenever certain guys come available, those are guys you want on your roster, right? There are certain guys who are, let's talk about Peyton Manning, for instance. Peyton Manning is going to become a free agent at the end of this season, but so is Brock Osweiler. Do both of them return to the team? There's an absolute chance. Could Peyton Manning end up somewhere else? Well, there's also a chance too. He says he's healthy enough to play, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Unlike Kobe Bryant, unlike Tiger Woods, he still wants to play. Just got hurt. He's just a hurt dude. Whenever he bounces back from this thing that slowed him down, this plantar fasciae foot thing, he's going to be okay, and he can play for you 1 or 2 more seasons and do it at the highest level.
I'm not sure if it's going to be at the highest level. I think even before this whole Al Jazeera documentary HGH accusation, I think that obviously if Peyton Manning becomes available, someone's going to sign him. What kind of deal he's going to get, where he's going to end up on the depth chart and at what level he'll be able to play are huge question marks. So if I'm an NFL GM, I'm not breaking the bank to bring in Peyton Manning. Much like I said earlier about Drew Brees, who's still playing at a high level, maybe you bring Peyton Manning in to mentor a young quarterback. But other than that, I don't know if the gamble, the reward is going to be worth the gamble.
Well, and you're not wrong. History is not on his side as far as aging players battling injuries. It's just not. But I've never been a guy who's been able to successfully bet against Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning has, throughout the history of his career, succeeded. He has gone to the top. And I think if he's willing to fight this and overcome this, he could do it. The injury, he could overcome it in the bad press and whatever. He might sue Al Jazeera. I don't know. But he's going to be a guy who's going to get back to excellence, I believe, if given an opportunity.
Now, what do you make of those accusations? Do you believe them, or do you believe Peyton Manning?
If you look at pictures of Peyton Manning in college at Tennessee and you look at pictures of Peyton Manning now, I don't know how someone's forehead can get so big.
Right. Well, and also, I remember when he came back from that neck injury, it was his first season with the Denver Broncos. And I'm watching his first preseason game. He's got no zip on that ball. He is just throwing lofty ducks. And I said to myself, looks like Peyton Manning's on the downside of his career. Well, he comes back and puts up almost career numbers. And anytime that happens, the performance-enhancing drug suspicions in the back of my mind. But I don't want to say anything out loud because I don't want to besmirch someone's reputation unless there's concrete allegations.
Well, could it be? And also, I'm sure I'm talking about Peyton Manning coming back and playing, but he very well could just retire. And if he does retire, does this HGH story become a coon to Ray Lewis and deer antler spray? Because there were all these reports right before the end of his career, and he called it. He wasn't going to have that kind of blemish on his record because he knew his career was over basically anyways, playing in that Super Bowl with that broken arm. He said deer antler spray, never heard of it. He's obviously lying. He obviously took a ton of it. But it doesn't matter because it doesn't play anymore. It's all dropped. So is it the same thing for Peyton Manning to where I could come back and be kind of mediocre and maybe get 10 more touchdowns, but it's not worth it because maybe I did HGH for a long time and it's going to be on my record?
I don't know because, Peyton Manning, he's such a media darling when it comes to NFL players. It's suspicious that he hired Ari Fleischer, former press secretary of the George W. Bush administration, especially since that administration had so much bad PR. I don't know why you're going to hire that guy. I don't know. I don't know how far people are going to go to try to prove or disprove Peyton Manning being on HGH. I don't think HGH has the same visceral reaction as steroids. So I think that if the story just kind of stays where it is, Al Jazeera says, we're sticking to our story. Peyton Manning says, I'm sticking to my story, and it just dies. I think eventually people, they won't forget about the HGH accusations, but it'll be an also ran. They'll say he's the greatest, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. There were, there were allegations of HGH, but it was never proven. And I think people move on. But if this thing grows legs, and he might have been fortunate that this happened right before the new year when news cycles dies, and it turns out that he was on HGH. In my mind, that's not that big of a deal because honestly, Fred, I'm under the impression that all professional athletes are on performance-enhancing drugs. So if everybody's cheating in a weird way, the playing field is totally level. But I don't know how fans are going to react because it seems like people get more angry at A-Rod for taking steroids, at Tom Brady for deflating footballs, than they get at Ray Rice for knocking out his wife. It seems like the worst thing that you can call someone in sports is the C word, cheater. And, if this HGH story gets deeper, or it grows more legs, it may hurt his legacy moving forward.
There was a report the other day on, I think it was Bleacher Report, which if you don't subscribe, every once in a while they'll hit it out the park with one. And they interviewed a bunch of former NFL players, and they said, what is the percent of NFL players that smoke weed? What is the percent of NFL players that recreationally cannabis, marijuana? And kind of the return was 60%. Kind of the voice of former players say, with no doubt, 60% of players in the NFL are regularly using marijuana. No one's up in arms about this, right? And the way I kind of understand it is, if you're going to hate someone for cheating, or you're going to hate someone for abusing drugs, or you're going to hate someone for whatever reason, I don't think you get to pick and choose those. You have to go down your moral middle and say they're bad people or they're whatever. And I don't love it, and that's why I think I don't really hold it against a guy who uses HGH, or a guy who, things you do to your own body, those vices, are not for me to judge.
Well, I think that the reason marijuana doesn't get as big of a negative reaction as HGH and steroids, because marijuana is not necessarily a performance enhancer. If anything, it's probably a performance inhibitor. So you can't call a guy a C word for smoking marijuana like you can for HGH. And by the way, I'm learning a lot about HGH through this Peyton Manning thing. I'm not a pro athlete. I might start taking it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's the best thing ever.
Do you take it? Is that why you're so large?
No, I've never taken it, but if I could get a prescription for it, I'm almost certain. And then if I took it, I would feel better. I would sleep better. My body would be healthier. Everything in my life would be better with HGH.
Right. Now they say there of course are risks with HGH. They don't know what its effect is on heart disease. They don't know what its effect is on cancer. But say I've got a degenerative disease, right, Fred? Say I've got Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yes.
And I know that I'm going to have a long, slow descent where eventually my body will become a prison, and I'll pass away, and my quality of life for the last 5 years is just going to be garbage. And I find out that HGH it may shorten my life by 5 years, but it'll make my remaining years more quality and more meaningful. I'm rolling the dice on shaving off 5 bad years of my life in order to make the shorter remaining years of my life better.
It helps regulate body composition, your fluids, your muscles, like how the density of your bones, like your sugars, your fat, your metabolism, all that stuff. The more HGH you put in you, the better your body runs. If your body runs better, your mind runs better, unless it has crippling side effects that we don't know about, which is a huge possibility.
If there's any HGH companies right now, we're open for sponsorships. Listen to how we just sold those.
Hey, trade. It's trade too. Just send it straight to my house. Just send me a direct message on Twitter. Yeah. I got you.
We are going to be the buffest radio show in all of St. Louis.
Well, at least a close second to. Oh gosh, I know we're at the end of the day. St. Louis Ambush, first one of the season on the road. Yeah, at first place, Missouri Comets. I watched the whole thing. Best game of the year. The Andre Hain, he's a new stud player for the Ambush. I'm falling in love with him. Congratulations to the Ambush. Those dudes worked so hard to beat the best team in the league for their first one of the year. Just great. Also, if you're up right now listening, you're probably going to be up tomorrow morning. Check out brand new programming on 590 AM KFNS. My buddy Matt Berger and Dave Rapp are hosting 6 to 8 every single morning. You're going to love it. Tune in. 590 it's on the comeback, Mike. We're doing all right here.
And we'll be back on said 590 next week. Thanks for listening. KFNS, TalkSTL.com, WayInRadio.com. See you next week. Bye. All right, and we're clear.
I totally forgot about that Ambush thing. Damn it.
That's okay. All right, stop and broadcast here. Unless you want. Well, all right. For those who've hung with at the end, I don't know if you have any postseason awards.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, let's see. I came up with 6. Athlete of the year, team of the year, personality of the year, overreaction of the year, biggest letdown, and possible one-hit wonder. I don't know what awards you've come up with.
I'll be able to compete in all of those.
Okay. Athlete of the year, I picked Steph Curry. It was between him and Cam Newton, but since the tiebreaker for me was, did they win a championship in this calendar year? Obviously, they both got off to great starts. They're both the biggest stars in all sports, let alone their sports. But the tiebreaker went to Steph Curry because he got off to that great start and he won a championship in this calendar year.
My athlete of the year, kind of different direction. It's going to be American Pharoah. I think the Triple Crown is the biggest deal in sports that no one talks about. So I'm going to give it to a horse. I think American Pharoah, hands down, first Triple Crown since 1978 and affirmed. That was huge for me. That was that aside from the Super Bowl, which was the best game I watched all year, that was the biggest sports story in my opinion.
I thought of him, but to me, it was cool watching him win the Triple Crown. But to me, horse racing it's just not mainstream enough, so that's why I went with Steph Curry. But that's not a bad choice on your part. Speaking of which, team Golden State Warriors, like I said, same criteria as Steph Curry. They got off to that hot start, and they won a championship this calendar year.
Mine is the United States women's national team winning the World Cup. I thought the World Cup tournament was great. I thought that women's team is great. I think they're doing a lot for society and culture. I think they have bigger impact than just on the pitch. So in my opinion, the United States women's national team winning the World Cup was the best team of the year.
Well, and speaking of the U.S. women's national team, someone that I thought of for personality of the year that didn't quite win it, but I think that she's significant in getting a lot of young girls, not only into soccer, into sports. Abby Wambach, the captain who retired, and I think she's got the most international goals. If it's not, is it of U.S. players? I don't think it's of all time, but I mean she's got one of those big records, and of course, female sports they don't get the attention and ratings that male sports do, but I think Abby Wambach, it was a very important character, if anything, to just be a role model.
I don't want to be negative Nancy, but she's kind of the one player I harp on. I didn't think she took the leadership role she needed to take, specifically with the Hope Solo situation. I don't think she had the cultural impact that Mia Hamm or Brandi Chastain had. I do not think, even though she's an exceptional player, I do not think she's an exceptional person. I do not think she's an exceptional leader. I think some of the girls coming up now, your Alex Morgans, your Sydney Leroux's, they are going to have bigger cultural impact than Abby Wambach did. Although I'm praising her as a great player, I do not think that she is my personality of the year.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time arguing Abby Wambach here. I will tell you who did win my personality of the year, and he almost won my athlete of the year. It was Cam Newton.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, because Cam Newton, they got off to that hot start. Of course, they lost last week, but they're still the favorites to win the Super Bowl. And on top of that, Cam Newton, he's like the closest thing to a real life superhero we have right now. He's a linebacker who used to be an athletic quarterback who's learned to play drop back quarterback, and just kind of the way he's become a cultural phenomenon off the field for the right reasons. I mean, he wears something flamboyant, and he's out like talking trash to other players on the field while talking to kids with cancer and giving out footballs. I think that like when we were kids, and it's probably because when we were kids, these guys were so much older than us, but when we were kids, athletes seemed to be larger than life. And I think that Cam Newton's kind of a throwback to that. And he's a hell of a lot of fun to watch. He seems like a good dude, but he doesn't take crap. Did you see during the Alabama-Auburn game, there was a video where somebody asked Cam Newton about taking money back when he played at Auburn, and he said he'd slap the shit out of the guy?
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
I like that. I like that, though, because, even though Cam Newton's a nice guy, he doesn't take other people's crap. And if someone says something off-color to you like that, I think it's great that he's alpha enough to at least tell someone to shut the hell up.
My personality of the year is going to take it back to kind of a 90s term, which is appointment TV. Cam Newton doesn't make me watch football. I'm going to watch football regardless. Personality of the year to me is Conor McGregor, and he's running away with it. Conor McGregor has given me a reason to watch the UFC, which I have not watched before. He is flamboyant. He is boisterous. He is colorful, literally physically and mentally. I mean, he's just painted. He's tattooed all over. He is a guy that is the face of UFC right now, and his impact was, in my opinion, not felt before this year, and it's felt more. And he's now the most famous name in what is the fastest up and coming sport in the country. I think Conor McGregor, without a doubt, is the number one personality in sports.
See, but the thing is, though, I don't think Conor McGregor is the number one personality in his sport. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Ronda Rousey was the one. She was the one who is making headlines, and she's the name you think of when you think of mixed martial arts.
And it might be a push then. If you think it's Rousey, then I'm going to argue it might be Dana White for putting them both in my face. I mean, I think the UFC is doing it the right way with sports personalities.
Checkmate, Fred Slow. All right. Okay, I've got one overreaction of the year. And at first I was going to needle you a little bit, Fred, and talk about Kobe's farewell tour. But I got something which I think has proven to be a bigger overreaction, and it's Deflategate. Because all offseason we were listening to theories about how, a couple ounces of PSI, one way or the other, can affect an entire season. And I think the New England Patriots, with the way that they played all season post Deflategate, just kind of illustrates the point that the whole debate itself was stupid, and that really the PSI of the football doesn't really have that much of an effect on the game.
I like that one. I'm going to stay in the NFL, and I'm going to go with, and it's a little bit of a reach, but I want you to follow me. I'm going to go with everyone's reaction to Jameis Winston after week 1 when he got blown out by 42-14 against the Tennessee Titans, and he did nothing on the field, just was garbage. His first pass ever was an interception. He was the biggest bust of the century. Because he has bounced back. That team is in the mix. He's a stud player like everyone knew he would be. I think it's the Jameis Winston hype to the NFL is the biggest overreaction of 2015.
Yeah, and I think what happened was, he's so polarizing with, accusations that were made against him in college and things that he did off the field that were proven, like the crab legs from Publix and the F her right in the P, yelling her, on top of the on top of the sexual assault allegations, that I think people were licking their chops waiting for him to fail. And I think, much like last season, mid-season, the Patriots had a bad loss. People are ready to write somebody off after they have a bad game, and that type of mentality mixed with people's dislike of Jameis Winston probably caused a bit of an overreaction, like you said.
Do you have any more categories?
I got one.
All right, what do you got?
Biggest letdown, most overhype, you could say. I would say the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. I can't even argue that. 100%.
I think it's funny too that these people who paid $99 for the fight were pissed off that the fight was boring, when you had people who actually follow boxing laughing at these people, because if you follow boxing, you would have known the fight would have been boring anyway, because Mayweather, he's like a defense. His fighting style is pretty much to wear the other guy, is to outlast the other guy. So you're going to see a whole lot of defense, and that's what people saw, and they were really pissed off because they were expecting Tyson Holyfield. I don't know.
A thing we do here, I agree completely, by the way. There's no sort of rebuttal. You're on point. It was just awful. A thing we do here on the weigh-in that I'm real proud of is how we take sports and mix it into society. So my biggest sports and society mash of the year is going to be the death of Stuart Scott. I think Stuart Scott passing last year had such a big impact on me personally, because I, like you and every listener we have, knows someone with or is affected by cancer. And what ESPN does with the Jim Valvano V Foundation, and Stuart Scott's becoming the poster child for it. The passing of Jim Valvano to Stuart Scott, and they're going to merge these guys together. And I know Stuart Scott, I don't know him personally, but I feel that Stuart Scott would be very proud to take this battle that he had for so long and be able to use that to help other people. The Stuart Scott passing was just huge to me, which will be, if you're listening to this on Sunday, it'll be 1 year tomorrow that he died. So that would have been January 4th, 2015. So I don't know, rest in peace, Stuart Scott. That was the biggest sports society moment for me.
Well, you know what? And I forgot that happened this calendar year. But yeah, you go back to his speech at the ESPYs. His speech at the ESPYs changed the way I view cancer, where, you know, he said when someone dies of cancer, they didn't lose their battle with cancer. They just died of cancer. You win the battle with cancer by just going on and living your life despite it. And you don't have to fight alone. If you're tired, lay down and rest and let someone else fight it for you, which, you know, you can check out mentally if you're just tired, and you know, let other people carry the burden. And then on top of that, Fred, you know, I often am surprised at the celebrity deaths that affect me. Usually when a celebrity dies, it's sad because it's a human being and they have friends and family that love them. But, you know, when Stuart Scott died, I got oddly emotional. And I remember sitting in my car for 2 hours just listening to ESPN radio and people talking about him. And I think what particularly hit me hard about Stuart Scott's death was that when I was a kid, I watched him every day. And to me, he was the epitome of hip, cool, youthful energy. And it was gone. And he died. And he wasn't very old when he died. And when you're a kid, 2 years is a lot, is a lifetime. And I remember every day before school, 4th and 5th grade, every morning I would watch Stuart Scott. And I forgot just kind of how much I related to him when I was a kid. And it kind of drudged up sort of those childhood memories of mine. And you know, just kind of, like I said, just how he just seemed to exude youth, and he seemed larger than life.
Well,
and he was gone.
You're hitting it on the head, because he was 49, so that's not 50. And
right.
And when he was reaching us, we were in that demographic where he's reaching all TV's made for 13-year-olds, right? So he's reaching young kids, and he's impacting those, like me and you. He's been part of our life for 15 years, and he never personally knew that. So whenever he passed, you know, it's unsettling and it's sad. And let's put a little juxtaposition on it. Let's go to a guy like Yogi Berra, who passed this year, right? Yogi Berra passes at 90. And when he passed, you celebrate that. He made it to 90, and he's as big of a personality as anyone in sports, but he lived that life. And because he lived that life, you're able to, you know, have a drink to it and celebrate. But whenever Stuart Scott passes, you pour one out. And that's the dynamic there.
You're right. Dying at 49 is condolences.
Yeah.
Dying at 90 is living to 90. That's congratulations.
Yes.
It's, I mean, when you're 90, as morbid as it sounds, when you're 90, that's what's supposed to happen, right? You're supposed to live to a ripe old age of 90, die, and then everyone celebrates your long life. At 49, you know, you're supposed to be enjoying the apex of your career. You're supposed to be sending your daughters off to college. You're supposed to be meeting their college boyfriends and walking them down the aisle. So I think in that way as well, that makes the fact that just a 49-year-old man with young daughters dying tragic. Add that to him becoming a beloved figure in our childhood, and it just compounds that.
Yeah. I mean, people are going to die every year, and they're going to have impacts, but it might be a long minute. Well, hopefully it's a long minute before I feel kind of the sadness, you know, that I felt from this. But like I said, I think it's going to go on to be a huge positive for a lot of people, and ESPN is going to do the right thing and just help, man.
Yeah, right. And Yeah, I mean, I think, in the Jim Valvano thing, when was that? 1994?
93, 94, yeah, something like
93, 94. It's a great speech, right? And they replay it every year. But I think there's a whole generation of people now.
that. 93.
Okay, so there's, it's been 22 years since that speech happened. So there's a whole generation of people who weren't even alive when that speech was made, who will connect to the Stuart Scott speech, and that's going to kind of re-energize the fundraising effort to fund cancer research and the like.
Well, and I remember when Stuart Scott passed, would have been no. I remember when he gave his speech. That actually would have been 2014. So when Stuart Scott gave his speech the summer of 14, because I work for a municipality and I run the park and rec, and I have a lot of kids who work for me. I have approximately 100 teenage employees, and me and a kid I grew up with who's my assistant manager, we're talking about the Stuart Scott speech and we're talking about the Jim Valvano speech. The teenagers had never heard the Jim Valvano speech.
Right.
So we literally pull it up and put it on the projector at work. And I'll let them watch all 11 minutes, because this is the kind of thing that had such a big impact on me, that I would like for it to resonate with them. But if it doesn't necessarily, maybe Stuart Scott does.
Right, exactly. Well, it's a shame that, this conversation we're having is on the YouTube only because,
well, I mean, we can put it on the podcast.
Well, I stopped recording my side.
Oh, I got them both. So,
oh, do you?
Yeah. So maybe, I don't know, rough cut for the.
Yeah. That's cool though. I think that'll be cool if it's a different, recording quality, because it'll seem very behind the scenes. So yeah, send me your podcast track and then send me this post-show track, and I'll cut them both and upload them to the folder.
Very good. I don't remember when we started talking about this, so it'll just take me a second to find it.
Yeah, actually, okay. Well,
I can send it to you in one file if you want. It's all just one file.
Right. Well, but if I'm on...
Oh, well, you know what? It'll be like right at the 1 hour mark, because that's when we're going to stop. Okay.
Well, I'm just wondering, if I'm on, because I'm going to be on one track and not the other.
No, well, I'll make it work. Trust me.
Okay. All right. Yeah, just send that to me, and I'll get it all set up, and I'll get it off to Joe here by this evening.
Cool. Very good.
Okay. All right. Good show, Fred.
All right. Thanks, boy.
All right. I'll talk to you